Hello, everyone. I'm Meg Osman with Canon Design. I'm a past president of the Chicago chapter of Cornet Global. With me today is Holly Duran of Holly Duran Real Estate Partners, but now newly of Colliers International with her team. Welcome, Holly. Happy Friday.
Thank you, Meg. Nice to see you on Friday, even though I think you and I have been on numerous calls together already this week.
Of course, we're ending our week together, which is always lovely.
Yes, I just wish it was more over a glass of wine at one of our favorite bars.
Exactly, me too. So we are doing this wonderful series for the Chicago chapter, talking to leading women of Chicago. It's called 15 Women, 15 Minutes. So we'll be talking for a little bit of time about your history in the Chicago market, your career journey, and things like that. So why don't we start out with just kind of an overarching question. What has your career journey been like in Chicago? And have you had any mentors or anybody that's really helped you along your way to create the flourishing practice that you have today?
Thank you. Well, it has been a long career, and I must harken back to I am born and raised, as you know, on the south side of Chicago. I came from an extremely hardworking blue collar family and was fortunate to be the first in my family to attend college. I went to college to be a CPA. Now, you know me well enough to know that was probably not a good career decision, but went to college to be a CPA and very soon realized that was not my calling. However, since my family had had no experience in college and I had had no experience really being around people who'd gone to college, I didn't know you went to college to try and discover yourself and to figure out and be exposed to all the different things and all the wonderful aspects of education. So after a few years of enjoying myself at college and taking all the classes I liked, from economics to business management practices and other wonderful things, I decided I didn't know what I was going to do for a living. So I left college and started working the week later. And I started working for a commercial real estate firm that had just inaugurated. It was one of the first tenant rep firms in Chicago. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, there were not specialists who represented just tenants. If you needed office space as a user, you went to an office building and you kind of knocked on the door, and the agent for the landlord was also your agent. So
And
some very brilliant.
not a lot of women in the business either at that time, I would guess.
No, there were very, very few. In fact, I think Goldie Wolf in Chicago was probably one of the only women in the industry. But I was not even 21 years old. I went to work as the senior assistant to the owner of the firm, reporting directly to an amazing woman who was in charge of the firm. There was only 5 or 6 of us in this practice at the time. A year later, there were over 90 people within the firm. The firm really took off. Unfortunately, the woman I reported to and learned a lot from had to leave the business. It was just too stressful. And all of a sudden I became in charge of the office and in charge of all these brokers. And it was a wonderful learning experience. Got to work on tremendous size deals, all guys. The only women in the office basically were the admins, with the exception of a wonderful woman I met by the name of Carol Levy, or now Carol Levy, at the time Carol Florsheim, who was an industrial broker and industrial and office, who had basically gotten divorced and had to support her children, and joined the commercial real estate industry because it gave her some flexibility of hours. She was raising 3 young boys. And she and I became very good friends. But, over time I left that firm and went to work for her boyfriend, now husband, Larry Levy, who I would say has been truly my amazing mentor and my good friend for the last 40 years. So it's been a really interesting time. As a young girl, though, from the South Side, and not a lot of pink collar, let alone white collar workers, I did have a mentor in my great aunt, who I think, Meg, you actually might have met years ago at one of our charitable events for Lurie Children's Hospital. She was one of the first true business owners and officed in the tallest building at the time, the Prudential building. one of the very first tenants. She had a secretarial placement business with a male partner. And I used to come down as a little girl with my gloves on and stuff envelopes for her. And I think I always wanted and knew in my heart, I wanted to be downtown. I loved the buildings and I loved the environment. So it was kind of full circle when I did leave school and she placed me with this real estate company, as if that was her business, and said, go to it. This could be a great career. And it has been. So 40 years later, here I am.
That's amazing. And, I have to believe along the way, just given kind of the grit that you had and the rigor that you have in business today, that there had to be some times when maybe you were criticized or maybe you were assumed to be something that maybe you weren't. Have you ever had any of those circumstances, and have you found a way to kind of propel yourself forward from any of those kind of unfortunate events?
Well, one of Larry Levy's favorite stories is the first time I went to a meeting with the board of directors of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the predecessor to the publicly traded company CME Group, my client still, I'm very proud to say. But during this meeting, I walk in and we're in the board meeting. It was one of the very first meetings I attended with Larry. And it was when the CME, or Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Merc, as they called it then, was really just a trading floor, lots of traders, everything you've seen on TV. And people really didn't completely understand exactly what was going on in the world of trading and the remarkable changes that were coming with the repeal of some regulatory issues in the Britain Act. So I go to this meeting and I'm the only woman in the room and I'm young, I'm in my 20s. And the vice chairman of the board walks in, a wonderful, brilliant man by the name of Leo Malavid, and looked around and said, well, where's Joan? Where's Joan? Joan's not here. You take the notes. And I'm not realizing who he is really at this point. Larry Levy said he almost had a heart attack. I said to him, I'd be happy to take the notes if he would type them up. The room got completely quiet. This was a very powerful man. This is the man who created financial futures with Milton Friedman.
You're killing me.
And he just looked at me and looked around the room and started laughing and said, I like her. Who is she? What's she doing here? It's gone on to be a very good, strong relationship, but it's something I learned way back when as a woman in business. You kind of have to sometimes stand up for yourself.
Yes.
Or you'll get walked over.
That's right.
Years later, when I won the Chicago Food Depository Award, we used to call it, the broker of the year, whatever. I'll never forget too, I gave a little speech, and Meg, you might have been there, but I caught some flack for giving the speech because I talked about how much harder it was for a woman in the business.
Yes. Correct.
And it makes me feel good today when I think back and I look at that speech, because it's still an issue. Right. It's still an issue 30 years later. Yeah. And I think we're all learning that unless we speak up, we cannot create any change.
Correct. And I think the timing of you speaking up too, right? I mean, so to your point, and it's something that we mentor with in our women's group at Canon Design, is you have to speak up in the moment. You can't wait and come back and talk to 5 more people and then come back to that person because they won't even remember what they did.
Exactly.
So exactly to your point of in that moment, making that comment or having something that you can say that you're prepared to say if someone is putting you in that kind of situation, I think is always kind of beneficial.
Well, and it can be a risk. It is, but you know what? Sometimes you have to take a risk, especially for causes you believe in. And as they say, there's no reward without risk.
That's right.
And I think it's done pretty well for me. I'm kind of known to be pretty outspoken, very direct. But as it comes to women's issues, a big advocate.
Incredibly fair and always acting with integrity.
Thank you. That's meaningful to me.
Is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. So we're in an interesting time right now. I mean, We were just talking, you just got your first vaccine, which is awesome and
Yes.
very, very exciting. So are you excited to get back to the office? I know you've kind of been in the office a little bit because, you've had some, been able to control your circumstances a little better than maybe most people. But do you have any predictions for what's going to happen as we all come out of this and what you think the future of work might be?
Well, Meg, we talk about it a lot. We read a lot. There's so much information now. It's hard to absorb. Um, I would say that's what's been most important, and one of the most important pieces of advice I've been giving my clients is we need to be patient. Look at the evolution. 6, 9 months ago, no one was going back to work.
Right.
And, nobody needed to be back at work. We were all productive. Well, I don't know how you judge that. I think everybody did an outstanding job of stepping up during this crisis and getting the business done, getting tasks done. But it's not an environment for creating camaraderie, collaboration, creativity, all the things we all know and we need. And one of the reasons why we are successful. So yes, we've been going back to the office. As you know, we've made this transition to Colliers, and it's a pretty amazing transition to be making in the middle of COVID. I can't say onboarding during COVID has been much fun. But brokers being brokers, which we are brokers and tenant reps, occupiers, there's property management people, everybody in the company. The majority of the brokers, I see them sprinkling in. It's been very quiet. Now has not been the time, I think, to make decisions as it relates to your office leases. So predictions, I think we're coming back. I don't believe we will be back full force till at least 2022. I think we've got to get the vaccine under our belt, but I believe the majority of our clients are now voicing the fact that they miss being in the office, they miss being with each other. And no matter how many workplace reviews and everything else you guys have to do, and our heads of real estate have to perform among their companies, I think the majority of the CEOs, from what I've been hearing, they want butts in seats. They want to see their people, they want to interact with their people, and they want business as usual. So I'm really hoping that happens shortly. But I think it's going to be kind of a quiet summer too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. I do think the CEOs are saying that. We're hearing the same thing. And I also think culture is going to play a big part and how employees are treated as far as just flexibility going forward and how different organizations might view their talent differently, which will be very interesting to watch, I think, over the next 6 to 9 months, the kind of decisions that they make and why they make them.
And that's my hope, that if COVID's taught us anything, it's taught us that people don't have to punch the clock and be there from 9 to 5. I think it will really help working parents, and even those of us whose children are gone and everything else, and we're dealing with our older parents and health issues and everything else. It's too frenetic, crazy as it is with technology. We have to learn how to set boundaries again. And I'm hoping that COVID will allow that to happen, that we can set boundaries around our business, set priorities for both our business and our personal life, and create flexibility, which I think will create much more creativity because
Right.
people will have an opportunity to decompress and to think.
Right. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. I know this goes very, very fast. So, any words of advice you might have out there for all of our young women leaders that are just starting in the commercial real estate business or interested in getting into the commercial real estate business? What would you tell them based upon what you have learned yourself?
Well, that's the other fun thing that has happened at Colliers. I'm around all this young, wonderful talent, and I'm really making a concerted effort to get out and meet more of the younger people. Being that with a small organization, we were mostly senior level. So what I've been telling them as we go along is a lot of the things, Meg, that you and I have had to learn over time. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to step up. As we know, young women in the business often get kind of pigeonholed into the work process and the writing, the behind the scenes. And it's the guys who go out and have the meetings and present and everything else. I've been counseling quite a few of the women that you've got to push yourself to the front of the line.
Yes.
It's a shame you still have to push, but you have to push yourself to the front of the line. But the most important thing is that you have to be smarter than everyone else in the room. So you have to do the work.
Right.
You need to be more knowledgeable in order to make your place as a senior level advisor in our business or in any business.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. We say the same things. It's just prepare yourself, prepare, and be ready all the time to take the reins when you can, because
Yeah.
you never know when an opportunity might present itself to you, right?
Yep.
Sorry, my phone rang at the end. But you just never know when the opportunity might present itself, and the door might open a little bit, it might crack open, and if you're not prepared to step through at that moment, you could lose an opportunity. So
Totally.
I
Totally.
completely agree with you. All right, well, we are up for time.
Well, it's so fun. I wish that we were together.
I know. Thank you for spending Friday afternoon with me. I so love spending time with you, and we're thrilled that you were able to do this for the Cornet chapter. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for including me. And have a great weekend, darling.
You too.
Bye-bye.